It's a mailbag episode answering your questions about tanking, about Damian Lillard trade packages, and the defensive potential of Nasir Little and Anthony Simons. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazer reporter Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts, and now also on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, you're listening to the podcast feed, please go ahead and do that. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. We didn't make our arbitrary goal of 2,000 subscribers by 2022, by New Year's Eve, but it's still 2022. We're still going to get there, and you're going to help. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel on YouTube, do that now and help me grow the audience there. I would truly appreciate it. Today's episode is a mailbag show. It's a special delivery mailbag. We do this each and every week, answering listener-submitted questions all episode long. There are two ways to do it. If you want to get involved in a future show, you can tweet at me at Mike G. Rich on Twitter is my handle. It helps if you tag it or indicate it in some way that it's for mailbag. That way I know you're not just tweeting at me. Some people like to share their opinions, so it's helpful to know that it's for the show. You can just send me a tweet whenever you're thinking of it, or watch my Twitter feed on day of the show during the week, and I will send out a tweet soliciting questions. You respond to that tweet. I'll do my best to get you in the show, or I'll save it for a future show. I've used a bunch of mailbag questions, sort of larger full segments in the week. It's a great way for you to kind of share, to share what you want to hear, what you want the show to be about. This is your show, my microphone, your show. So, that's a great way to get involved and kind of let me know what's up. Let me know what you're curious about. If you're not a Twitter user or someone who doesn't tweet, you can send me an email, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. That's lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Same deal. You can send me questions for the mailbag, or just, topics you might want me to cover, questions for future guests, all those things. That's the email address is the best way to sort of get in touch with me. I'm pretty good about responding to emails. So hit me up there if you want to do that. That's the two ways to get involved. Like I said, we do this each and every week, typically on Mondays, Mailbag Monday, and I post it on Tuesdays. Today, I'm recording it on Tuesday nights, a special delivery mailbag. This is your Wednesday, January 5th show. Without further ado, let's get into it. Our first question comes from Marcus Lake at Indoor Fiend on Twitter, who asks, is it time to admit we're tanking, Jennifer? Tyler Cornwall at Tyler Cornwall 31 asks a similar question on Twitter. We are about 1 month from the trade deadline. How long do you think interim GM Joe Cronin gives it before making the call on what direction we're taking the team for the remainder of the season? The T word is a big one. That tanking word is a big one. The difference in tanking for the Blazers is Damian Lillard's availability. Damian Lillard did not play Monday nights. He's not going to play Wednesday nights. And the difference in just being a bad basketball team and tanking is whether the Blazers continue to try to trot Damian Lillard out there. Prior to Monday's game, I asked Chauncey Billups, is this a multi-game thing with Dame? Is this a week-long thing with Dame? He rested for about 10 days last time, got a cortisone shot, tried to get his body right, looked a lot better, and then obviously had to go back and take some time off. And I speculated, and this was in yesterday's show, that just the mere fact that Damian Lillard was not playing in that game suggests that the inevitable is coming, that he will be shut down, and he will have surgery, and that's the direction they'll go. It's not a guarantee by any means, but it's just all of the sort of big neon arrows are pointing in that direction, right? He took 10 days off. He tried to get his body right. It didn't work. He's now taking more time off for a team that's 14-22. They're just straight up not good. They're very bad without Damian Lillard, but they're just they haven't even been good with him because he's just not right. He's not himself. He's now officially going to be out for Wednesday's game. First reported by Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports, and then later confirmed by the team a couple minutes later. So the difference in sort of tanking and being normal bad, or whatever they are, just being a bad team by virtue of not having enough talent, is intentionality. And the big difference for me would be whether they decide to shut Damian Lillard down or not. Dame will have a big say in that. I assume that he will want to try to play some point in January prior to the All-Star game. I imagine making the All-Star team matters to Dame. So the coach voting for All-Stars probably happens the last week of January is roughly how I would guess. I don't know the exact timeline, but the final weekend of January is sort of typically timing wise how they would do coach voting. Dame isn't going to start the All-Star game. He would get put in by the coaches. So perhaps they delay it for that long, but at practice tonight, I'm recording this on Tuesday, January 4th. This is Wednesday, January 5th show here on your daily podcast covering the Portland Trail Blazers. Tuesday night's practice, Chauncey told reporters there that they were going to consider shutting. They would have they would have a conversation about all of the options, including shutting Dame down and then having that be an extended absence. And obviously, you could imagine that a surgery would follow to get his abdominal muscles correct. So the answer to your question here is that the difference in tanking is whether Dame plays or not. Because if he doesn't play and they're just normal bad, this is just a bad team. Teams are bad all the time, but like capital T tanking to me means intentionally losing, and intentionally maybe not being as bad as possible, but valuing future development and the future health of the franchise over wins. And if they shut Dame down, that's what they're doing. I'm not like anti-tanking this. I'm certainly not that. I would prefer to watch a competitive basketball team, but there's there's a very reasonable case to be made that they should go ahead and tank. So the question, the Blazers will admit they're tanking when they shut Dame down. And how long do you give it? I'd say you give it to the end of January. It's kind of why I highlighted earlier in the week on Monday's show, highlighted how sort of big and brutal this January month was. And it got worse because they added the Brooklyn Nets game in there next week. So a month, you give it until leading up to the trade deadline. And I think the Blazers may make trades that signal, in the next couple of weeks, even in the next couple of days. I think trade season is upon us. That signal. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to trade CJ McCollum first, but I think trading him is certainly on the table. I think you see Rocco get traded, you see Nurk get traded, and you see CJ McCollum get traded. Maybe they might hold on to CJ depending on if they can't get back what they need. They don't have to trade CJ before the deadline. They do have to probably trade Nurk and Rocco, and the returns on those trades will suggest the direction. But this team's bad. I think they lean into the skid. I think they absolutely lean into the skid. I think the big T word, capital T tanking, when we get to February, we will be able to freely admit that's what's happening. And I think over the next 3.5 weeks, we will see signs that point in that direction. And the biggest sign is Damian Lillard's health, his availability, and the decision on what his future is. Do the Blazers want to chase it, or do they want to kind of admit what it is that this team isn't going to get near what their preseason goals were, preseason expectations were, and building for next season is now significantly more important. Let's come back in that second segment and answer more of your questions. This is a glorious Mailbag Monday. But first, let me tell you all about Truebill. It's the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, you don't want, or just that you forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Companies make it hard to cancel subscriptions, so Truebill is here to make it incredibly simple. You link your accounts on Truebill, and they will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. It's more than one tap. You're paying for a service, so someone else does the tap for you. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped them save $100 million. Like me, you're a trusted neighborhood podcaster who used Truebill to quickly get an eyeball on all of my digital subscriptions under 10 minutes. I went to truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. I was looking on the app right there on my phone at all my digital subscriptions. Super fast, super easy. Start canceling today. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. You can go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA can save you thousands a year. That's Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. All right. Let's keep it rolling on this glorious Mailbag Monday. Our next question comes from Logan Gillis at Logan Gillis on Twitter, who asks, let's say prior to the deadline, Dame asks out and the front office decides to blow the whole thing up. What kind of pile of picks could they get back in total? And Adam asks, Dame quietly demands a trade, and your past first point guard Mike G. Rich is given the reins as the GM. What do you do? These questions, Logan did not give me the reins. So Logan, come on, dog. But Adam gave me the reins. So let's talk about this. I also did a little editorializing here. Logan proposed a larger blow up. Like you trade Dame, you trade CJ, you trade Nurk, you trade Nance, you trade Norm. Like you truly blow it up and you just keep Ant and Nas. I think that's a question for another day, quite frankly. Let's just talk about what a Dame trade would look like or what they would want. First of all, I am not in the trade Dame camp yet. I know that some smart people are. I've certainly seen, people who cover the league and national reporters who cover the league who I respect and think are smart say it's time. Just pull the Band-Aid off. This era of the Blazers is done. I don't see the NBA basketball as a zero-sum game. I mean, literally the games are, right? Like one team wins and one team loses. But like, I think you can have a successful season that doesn't include winning a championship. And I think that there's a human element to what Damian Lillard provides to this franchise that I wouldn't want to pull the plug on now after he was one of the 10 best players in the league last year. He had a shitty season and you say it's over. That's not where I'm at. I'm not there. But I think there's a reasonable case to be made to say Damian Lillard's 31 years old. You kind of a decade of Dame produced a lot of positive results, but not the ultimate one. And if you want to, why wait? Why wait? Because I think you can just, as long as you don't give Dame a 2-year, $100 million extension this summer, you can revisit this in July and August and next February and not be in too worse of a place. Like, I don't think it gets like significantly worse if you keep Dame around for another year and try it one more time. Also just like respect to a dude who's meant so much to the franchise. I don't think at the first sign of things going south that he's the one you bail on. I do recognize, though, the sort of like strategic value in going ahead and doing that. You get the most for Dame. And that's kind of the question here, right? It's like, how much do you get for Dame? I don't think you consider trading Damian Lillard right now for less than the asking price that was the James Harden deal. So that's, 4 picks, 3 pick swaps, a Jarrett Allen level player who I think is just a fantastic young center, and Karis LeVert, like a pretty darn good starting quality wing. So that would be 2 starters, 4 draft picks, and the right to swap others. That's the asking price I would ask for Dame. Because why I mentioned, like, I don't see it as a zero-sum game. Like, I don't think the teardown has to be, doesn't have to be OKC level proportions where you get like really awful and try to build up with like 5 straight years of first round picks. Like, I think you can get to the middle and get back to being an okay playoff team. Like, it's just so hard as a non-glamour market to get all the way bad and build up, because not only do you have to get the draft picks right, a very hard thing to do, you then have to time it right. So you're paying them all, and the draft picks that you do get right sort of grow together and fit together and don't, and that the sort of timing of the money works. And in non-glamour markets, it's going to be very, very hard to add free agents to sort of complement those picks. So you really are only sort of giving yourself a puncher's chance to be competitive by getting the picks right and then making trades, using those picks to get trades. We'll see what OKC does. I'm a little skeptical that they ever get themselves to sort of like championship level. They have a bunch of nice young players and an absolute boatload of picks. So they'll get to sort of, prove me wrong, prove me right. Test my skepticism is maybe the best way to say that. But like, the package I would want for Damian Lillard is like, I want NBA players. I want, like, if you could get a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander like OKC did, hell yeah, he's a star in the league, right? Like, he might make the All-Star team this year. He's excellent. But I want NBA players. Like, for me, my sort of strategy, if I'm the reins of the GM, is like, I want a Jarrett Allen. I want someone who's like, oh, this dude's good right now. We have something cooking here. We can be okay. Cleveland was in a different spot, right? When they got in that multi-team deal to get Jarrett Allen in the James Harden trade. But like, if you assume that the Blazers get most of the positive assets in a Dame trade, or like they get, in addition to all the pick assets, they would get some player assets. I want players. I want NBA players. I am of the belief that players win and picks don't win, particularly not for non-glamour markets. It's just so hard. You want talent on the roster, not the sort of like potential to get talent. That said, smarter people than me, sort of like more cold-hearted tacticians than I am, the Nate Duncan and Kevin Pelton, two guys I respect who are super smart, heavily disagree with me there. They want the picks. They want to use a Nate term, like bites at the apple, right? That's not, you're giving me the reins. Adam gave me the reins. So that's not my approach. But what I would, if you're not tearing it down to the absolute studs, if you're just trading Dame and going from there, I think you have to trade CJ, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there is no Dame trade that isn't an aggressive rebuild, but for the rebuild starting place, I want NBA players. I don't want teenagers to lose and lose and lose and lose. I think you can lose just fine with a Karis LeVert, Jared Allen core, but then you have some NBA guys to kind of, if you get your draft picks right and they're contributors, hop back into the playoffs right away, put yourself in the position where you're 1 move away, 2 moves away, not a 7-year plan. That nothing works in the NBA over a 7-year window. Like, just look back to 2014. His best team in the NBA in 2014 was the Spurs. It's like, and LeBron James played for the Heat and blah, blah, blah. It's like, 7-year timeline is too long. The greatest NBA dynasty of, maybe ever, and certainly of the last 20 years, the Golden State Warriors lasted for 5 seasons, and they're back again as a championship level team. But like, that core, that dominant core was like a very, very brief window. And it was like, even, what I'm saying is, we don't need to go into all the details of every past champion. It's like, your window is always small. So give me NBA players that can maximize that window. And if they don't work, you reset the window. And it's, again, small. It's another 3 years. Acting like you have 5, 7, 10-year windows is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's not how the league works. It's outrageous. It's not how players' bodies works. So if I were to trade Dame, give me NBA players, a whole boatload of picks and NBA players, nothing short of the James Harden package. I'm hanging up the phone if that's not what I hear. Let's come back in the third segment and answer more of your questions. We've been thematic in these first 2. Let's get a little, let's bounce around a little bit to close out the show. But before we do that, let's talk about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. There's no trick. Built Bar sent me a box of Built Bars probably 2.5 years ago. And I said, great, thanks for the product. This is really kind that an advertiser would send us products. Like, they'd send us some stuff. That's cool. Then I ate them and I said, oh, these rock. And since then, I have been using my money to regularly purchase Built Bars, protein bars that have 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, and no more than 5 grams of net carbs. They come in great flavors. My personal favorites are peanut butter brownie and cookies and cream, but you'll find whatever you're looking for, you'll find something. Plus, they got new flavors all the time. So if you check built.com, you'll see limited time flavors, find out what you like, order more from there. So check it out, built.com. Use that promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your next order. That is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Today's show is also brought to you by BetOnline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. If you're looking to bet on the college football championship game, you can do that. If you're looking to bet on the NFL playoffs, you can do that. If you're going to bet on the NBA's regular season, you can do that. Hockey, soccer, combat sports. You want to play your favorite Vegas casino games, all available on betonline.ag. So head on over there today, your mobile device or on your desktop, and put in the promo code Locked On. You will get a 50% welcome bonus when you're making your first deposit. It's betonline.ag, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still cruising through this glorious special delivery mailbag. I may have already called it a Mailbag Monday in this episode, but that's because I don't know what day of the week it is. It's a Tuesday. Special delivery mailbag. This is your January 5th episode. I'll remind myself and you, dear listener, one more time. Our next question comes from Rip City Limits, at Rip City Limits on Twitter, who asks, Norman Powell's trade restriction drops off on January 15th. Do you think that's not a collective pronoun, Rip City. That's bold. Do you think they could possibly be looking into something involving him in a trade? Maybe teams have asked about him. His contract is a bit more team friendly, and he has been one of the more consistent players this season. I absolutely think Norman Powell could be traded. Just because if they're trying to sort of maximize value and like get as good as possible for the upcoming next 2 seasons, which I believe they will, they're going to keep Damian Lillard on the roster. They're going to try to maximize their value. Norm is good. Other teams could use Norm. Like he could help. He can really, really score. He's not a really high level defender, but he's a competitive one, particularly when he guards people his size. He's, he could help. And he's got 4 years remaining at about 18.5, 19 million per for the remainder of the deal. That's a lot of Norman Powell, but if for a team that's like really going for it, that's I could see a team talking themselves into it. And it's just an easier contract to trade at 19 million versus CJ McCollum for 30 million for relatively comparable players. Like CJ McCollum is better than Norm, but is he $12 million? Is he one full rotation player better than like, a whole nother contract slot better than Norm? Probably not. So like, yeah, I absolutely 100% believe that Norm could be dealt. He's certainly not untouchable. I like Norm. I'm a fan of Norman Powell, but absolutely not untouchable. There's just, y'all know what it is. And January 15th is the date. So he will not be traded prior to that. So look for it in the next 10 days, whether Norm's on the market. I think there's a very real possibility Norm could be traded, as Rip City Limits outlines there. It's just, it could happen. Next question comes from MapQuest Malnati at Malnati on Twitter, who asks, is there any credence to the thought that Anthony Simons needs a larger role, i.e. starting to reach the next level of his development? Last night's game and his previous career highs for points came when he was the primary option for much of the game. Every player is going to be better with the ball in their hands and a whole bunch of minutes. You give a guy like a shit ton of minutes and a shit ton of shots, they're going to score more points. The 37 he had in 48 minutes against the Kings is like, it was a wild game, but in terms of like efficiency, it's not, it hurt his per 36 minute numbers. Like it was worse. He was worse because of it. Yeah. And last night he was really, 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 really good. And he played 40 minutes or 39 minutes and he got the ball in his hands and he got to make the decisions. But I do not think that Anthony Simons' problem with the Blazers has been opportunity at all. In fact, I think he was pushed into an opportunity that he wasn't capable of 3 seasons ago, his second season in the league. They carved out a spot for him to be, the backup shooting guard, backup point guard, and he was not capable of it. The following year, he had a slightly reduced role, but he still played regular 20 minutes a night. He's playing more than 20 minutes a night now. Like, opportunity has not been Ant's problem. I will say this. If he was the third guard and not the fourth guard, I think you could maximize his talents. That's the balance of the roster, right? That's the desperate need to balance the roster. It's not because you need to give Ant 36 minutes. It's because you need to have the option to give Ant 36 minutes. And if you have Dame and Norm and CJ, that's not even on the table. Like, you just can't play Ant that many minutes because you can't go small for that many minutes. I mean, they've tried it. It's not a good idea. They're a bad team because of it in many ways, because their 4 best offensive players are all the same size and all under 6'4". Ant probably needs a bigger role and a more consistent role, but I don't think his development has been boosted by them giving him a massive role. And in December, when he had this massive role without CJ out, he really struggled. It's not always, your development isn't linear and isn't obvious always like that. Ant took advantage of having a bunch of opportunity on Monday evening. He'll get another chance with no Damon, no CJ on Wednesday evening. You'd love to see him continue to take those big steps. I think he's an NBA starter. Like, I project him as a long-term NBA starter. But I think he's being held back as not being the third guy, as opposed to not being the second guy or the top guy. I don't totally buy that one, Malnati. Next question comes from Jared Cowley. That's at Jared Cowley on Twitter. Jared asks, why aren't Anthony Simons and Nassir Little better defenders? They both have the physical tools, length, athleticism, strength to defend well, but at least according to all NBA metrics, and I would add your eyeballs, Jared, at least according to all NBA metrics, they remain poor defensive players. Is it age, inexperience, something else? I think, and this is a me thing, this is a Mike Richmond thing. I think we get confused about what defense is. It's a skill. It's a skill like shooting and passing and dribbling. Some guys aren't good at it and they have to develop that skill too much. It's like a high school basketball thing to be like, defense is all energy and effort. That's hogwash. If it was all energy and effort, every player in the league would be capable of being a high level defender. It's a skill thing. They don't have the skill of it. Nasir Little is obviously way closer than Ant to having that skill. And in fact, when the ball is in front of Nasir, I think he's a good defensive player. When it's his man in the ball one-on-one, I think you could even call him like an above average defensive player. It's the team concept. It's the helping, it's the navigating screens, it's the navigating switches where Nas looks lost. And sometimes he'll be a step slow in those decisions, step slow processing that, and then he'll get beat off the dribble. And you're like, oh, he got beat. But I think about the Bulls game. There's a home game a month or so ago. I don't know how time works in the NBA, but the Blazers won that game against the Bulls at the buzzer. Big comeback, great game, one of the best wins of the season. It's a short list, but certainly that's top 3 at least. But the Bulls are coming down with 30 seconds left, and DeMar DeRozan gets it in the sort of mid post, in his office in the mid range, trying to operate, and Nas stood him up. Great defense, great pressure on the shot, really good defense. Then the Bulls come down, have a chance to tie, and Nas is supposed to guard Zach LaVine off the ball, totally gets caught up in the screen, gives up a wide open 3. That's the difference. If the ball's right in front of him, Nas is really good, sort of navigating the team concept, navigating the sort of larger space of the floor. Nas can get a little bit lost. I think he has the tools to become a pretty good defender. He's not that right now. And some of that is just developing feel and defensive IQ, and developing the skill of being a good defense and defending within the team's plan. He'll get there. Ant, I'm not so sure about. You mentioned strength. I don't really think Ant is strong enough to guard in the league right now. He's definitely stronger than he's ever been, but he still gets overpowered. He doesn't always get his feet and his hips in front of people. He spends a lot of time reaching. Sometimes he'll use athleticism to recover, but he doesn't use that athleticism to sort of stay in front in the first place. He's just not a very good defensive player. It's hard to defend as a guard in the league, and he's not particularly good at it. He is long and big. I think he could definitely improve, and I think he has improved a little bit on defense. But there are times when he just gets beat in straight line drives. Chauncey Billups talked about it after the game that he's seen kind of Ant be up and down on defense. I think Ant's been mostly down on defense. I think he's just not very good at it. He's good at the most valuable thing, which is scoring. Let's worry about him being a consistent high-level scorer, having more nights like Monday, less months like December, and then we'll sort of start checking the other boxes. But the simple answer to your question is that they lack the skill of defense, the way that other guys lack the skill of ball handling. Like, defense is a skill. It's not an effort thing, although there is a level of effort and energy required to be a good defender. The sort of why folks are good at it is because of the skill that there is to play defense. I think don't let your high school basketball coaches confuse you. Playing defense in the NBA is a skill thing. Next question comes from Matthew at Reverend Romulus, who asks, next season, are the Blazers more likely at this point to have a second All-Star on the team or the Rookie of the Year? My pessimism says Rookie of the Year, but it would be absurd for the team not to make one last big effort to give Dame a real running mate, right? Abso-friggin-lutely. I'm with you. I am with you, Rev. The problem is trading for another All-Star is going to be really difficult. Acquiring another All-Star via whatever method is going to be really difficult. They just don't have the assets. Some of the stuff, like, Damian Lillard got pretty upset a couple weeks ago about Jason Quick suggesting that every option should be on the table and the Blazers should consider trading Dame. Dame was offended by that, and without litigating that, he was right to be offended about pretty much whatever he wants to be offended about. But like, the reason that that's on the table is because the previous regime, Neil Olshey, he blew it. He put them in a place where they have very few paths to improving. The reason that you have to consider the path of blowing it up and trading Dame, what we talked about to open the show, is because they don't have a lot of other paths to get good. You're not trading CJ McCollum for an All-Star, although the Blazers are going to probably have a really high asking price for CJ because whomever they were to acquire in a CJ McCollum trade kind of has to be the second best player on their team. That's like how the roster is constructed, right? Unless you're a big Norm and Ant believer. And to me, those are third and fourth best types. So the asking price is going to be high for CJ. I don't think you're getting that back. And I don't think you're trading CJ for a dude who's going to make an All-Star team. That seems unlikely to me. I think it's much more likely the Blazers lean into the skid and tank and end up with the 5th pick in the NBA draft or whatever, 7th pick in the NBA draft, and draft the Rookie of the Year. Is it likely that they nail a draft pick that cleanly and get the Rookie of the Year? No, but I think it's like if you're asking me to pick this hypothetical, I think it is more likely that next season they have the rookie of the year on the roster because they tank and pick in the top 10 than they acquire a second all-star to pair alongside Dame. For me, more fun if they acquire that second all-star. I'm not a big NBA draft guy. I love basketball, so like I will be excited about whatever rookies, but some people get amped up about the draft. That's not me. Give me adults. I'm the LeBron James of podcasters. I don't believe in young players. I want to see adults. Although literally recording this podcast, I just watched Ja Morant and Evan Mobley, and I said, "Oh, these guys are so fun." So I can be easily convinced once they make the league. But I think, like, to answer your question, Rev, and thank you for getting back on these wonderful hypotheticals. You're an all-time great hypothetical asker. You're the Damian Lillard of hypothetical askers, of hypothetical question posers, I think is what I should call you. Truly an all-time great, underappreciated at your craft. But I think it's much more likely the Blazers have the rookie of the year on the roster. I'm with you in your pessimism. You know how I roll, as opposed to second all-star. But come on, do it. Get a second all-star. It'll be more fun. That is going to do it for today's show. That is your special delivery mailbag. If you want to get involved in a future one, at Mike G. Rich on Twitter or lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Tomorrow or tonight, when you're listening to this is again Wednesday's episode. Blazers play the Heat. Heat have 10 guys on the injury list and not going to have Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo or Duncan Robinson. The Blazers aren't going to have Damian Lillard, not going to have CJ McCollum. Cody Zeller isn't back. Some of the Blazers are going to play some of the Heat plus some 10-day guys. We will have a recap of that show on Thursday. We've got special guests joining us on for Friday's show. We're going to have Jason Quick joining. I believe Jason's going to be on Thursday's show, but we'll see how we swing it. But fun shows the rest of the week. Then Blazers play a couple more home games on Friday and Sunday. So 2 more shows this week and 5 every day of the week, free wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. So tell your friends about the show. Tell them they can get it wherever they get podcasts and also on YouTube. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.